Misery is the next card coming to Marvel Snap. Today, we're looking at the good, the bad, the potential deck list, and then figure out if Misery is worth it or not. In this installment of
Isn't worth it.
What's going on, nerds? Let's jump right in. Misery is a 4 energy, 7 power card that reads on reveal, repeat the on reveal abilities of your other cards here.
Then destroy them.
To me, this is one of those cards where people are like, oh, you could do this, or that you could do that, that you could do this. But really, no. I think it's all just gonna end up being way too much work for the juice. That's not the saying, but you know what I mean. I would like to note some specifics on how the card actually functions and interacts with stuff. I'm like 99.8%, yeah, 0.8% sure that if you have armor in a lane and you play Misery into it, expecting the triggers to go off but not have the cards destroyed, it's not going to work like that. I think the destroy is a condition of the card actually being met. So yeah, like just as an example, if you have the hood and armor in the same lane and you play Misery there, the hood's still going to be there. It's not going to trigger. You're not going to get the extra demon. I would like it if Second Dinner worked on the wording of their cards, because this is pretty ambiguous. You could make an argument either way, the way the card is worded. But really, if we look at all the other cards that have come out in the past, I would expect the destroy to be absolutely a condition of this card. So what's the good and bad of Misery? Let's dig a little deeper. So stupid. Yeah, so the first thing here is unique effect. The most similar card in the game to Misery is Odin, and the only thing that they share is the fact that you get to re-trigger on reveals. But really, Misery is going to be in completely different decks, probably, than Odin would be. But my point is that if you ever see Misery in a deck and you go, what can I replace Misery with? The answer is nothing, so don't ask. The second positive here is, since this is a unique card, some neato combos that you're going to be able to pull off. I'm probably not going to try them because I'm not high on this card, but let's go over a couple of them. Obviously, there's junk decks and destroy decks, I guess, and Electro, sure. But I actually think a deck that might be one of the better homes for Misery is like a ramp deck with Electro and Jubilee, and just Misery is just a way to get rid of your Electro, a way to re-trigger Jubilee, stuff like that. There's also Shuri. I know it seems weird because you're blowing your Shuri up, but you get a 14 power Misery, which then doubles whatever the next card you play. There could be some cool things going on with Misery. But really, I think the place that Misery is going to end up finding a home is actually a deck that none of us are considering. That's what I think's weird about this card. You look at it and you're like, oh, Hazmat, oh, Destroy, oh, Electro. Sure, yeah, whatever. But I think like a couple weeks from now, or maybe if someone's quick figuring it out, the deck that Misery is actually good in is going to be some like really awkward deck that is running a couple of cards you just wouldn't think of. My guess is Jubilee is going to be one of them. On to the bad parts about Misery. So pretty much it has limited synergies. The cards I've mentioned so far, that's it. And go open Marvel Snap right now, make a deck that has 11 cards and keep the 12th spot open for Misery, and see if the decks you theory craft aren't awkward as fuck. They are. Every time I've tried building something with this, like on snap.fan or just in the game, you end up with like 3 or 4 cards left where you're like, I don't know what the hell to put in this. This is awkward. It feels weird. And the reason for that is because Misery doesn't have many good synergies. Really, the only good ones, the ones where you're like, oh yes, this is actively going to be awesome with this, is Electro, Hood, Hazmat, Jubilee. And the second point here is it seems like a lot of work. I think if you end up making this card good, I think you're going to be jumping through hoops. You're going to be like Will Ferrell in that mascot costume, jumping through fire hoops. Yeah, sure, you jump through the hoop, but you caught on fire. Being successful with Misery is going to feel like that TV show Wipeout. Have you ever seen that show? It's amazing. Check it out. But yeah, Misery is Wipeout. Sure, sometimes you go into God mode and you sprint across the obstacles, you leap across the balls of death. Great. But most of the time, you're going to eat shit repeatedly before you actually get that good run. That's Misery. Bunch of eating shit, a couple of games where you're like, that was cool. All right, so on to a potential deck list. This is the best I can come up with, really. But basically, Misery's like, you get to re-trigger Jubilee, Electro, you can use Psylocke to ramp into Misery, and then Misery you play on turn 3, which then re-triggers Psylocke, which then lets you play a 5-drop. You get it. I also made this because I didn't want to just make like a Hood and Hazmat and then plug in 10 cards and be like, look, this is a potential deck list for Misery. Everyone is going to make that deck. It's obvious. I'm not going to waste your time by talking about it. Never mind, I am. All right, on to my recommendation and checking out the Spotlight cache that Misery's bringing along with it. So War Machine and Nomura are the other 2 cards you could get. So as far as tokens go, I can't in good conscience recommend getting Misery, because if I sit here and say, yeah, get Misery for 6k tokens, and it's what I think it's going to be, I'm not a good person. I'm not a good content creator. I'm out there telling you go pick up cards that are probably not going to be great. No, I'm too nice of a guy to do that. No, but really, if you ignore everything I say in this video, and you really like the idea of Misery, at least for me and for yourself, really, wait a couple of days and see if Misery's actually working out like you think it would. Check out other content creators, and then decide if you want to spend the 6k tokens to get Misery. Now, as far as keys go, this is where it's a little bit more flexible. If you don't have War Machine and you are into Misery, that sounded weird. But yeah, if you don't have War Machine, I could see it being all right to spend 4 keys to get both of them. I don't think Nomura is a good card, even no matter how much of those stupid ass Odin Nomura decks you see coping on the ladder. It's not good. I've never been impressed with those. So I think you can take Nomura out of this equation and just figure out if War Machine and Misery, if getting both of those is worth the 4 keys to you. If so, then go for it. All right, that's it. Review over. Okay, bye-bye.